So, as I said, thank you very much. Welcome if it's your first time, and welcome back if it's your second time at this workshop. For anyone that doesn't already know, I'm Ellie. I'm the marketing manager at Avon at HarperCollins, and I'm joined today by a very special guest who I'm thrilled to have on, the lovely Claire Fenby, who I'm going to ask to introduce herself.
So, I am Claire. I am a digital marketing assistant at One More Chapter, which is a digital division of HarperCollins, and I'm also a content creator on YouTube and I guess like Bookstagram, and an all-round like nerd, to be honest. Is that a good introduction?
Yes, basically she's killing it. That's what it comes to. Social media, killing it. So yes, actually we both work across HarperCollins. We work at very similar divisions at One More Chapter, and I work at Avon, as I said. And we do kind of work together, but not on the same books. We kind of learn from each other and have lots of catch-ups and things. But yes, like I said, we're both big social media users with your amazing YouTube and Instagram, and then I have my blog and Twitter. So we're kind of covering quite a few social media bases today. But without further ado, we're going to jump straight into some pre-prepared questions. And the first question, and I'm not going to throw a curveball at you yet, is how did your personal social media usage benefit your career in publishing? So like I said, we're covering careers and books as well in this workshop. So how do you think it benefited your entrance into the publishing career?
I think I got my job because of it. Obviously, like, you know, I'm sure there were other things about me that meant that kind of HarperCollins saw something in me that they wanted to work with. But before, I guess, I got an internship at One More Chapter, well, at Harper Impulse as it was, and then kind of was made permanent. But I really got the internship through doing my YouTube channel, and then also doing freelance kind of social media work with other publishers like Simon & Schuster. And I'd kind of created a bit of a portfolio just through my own social media. So when I went to apply to jobs, I could kind of say, I haven't worked in an office, but I've done stuff like this, which I think, you know, would benefit your social media or your marketing campaigns. And it was very much working with the little that I had, and gave it to them basically at the interview. But yeah, I think I really got my job because of it. How about you?
I mean, I think marketing across the board is very social media focused. I thought before I got into marketing, I thought marketing was going to be more about advertising and buying ad space and, I don't know, just kind of this oldie worldy Mad Men style of marketing. When actual facts,
less sexism. That would be great. Where the dresses of Mad Men with
they do the makeup tangent. But actually when I got into it, I think social media in marketing and publishing at the current period of time is probably about 75% of all of marketing, because obviously advertising platforms are on social media as well, so things like Facebook, and you can do Twitter ads and Instagram ads, so it really is a big part. And I mean, very similar to you, I know for a fact that the first 3 jobs I got, so my internship, my job at Tay, and then also my previous job at a digital publisher, I got all 3 jobs because of my blog. Not so much because of the content, but because of the fact I could code, the fact that I could do, as in basic coding, the fact I could do design, the fact I knew how to market my own brand, for want of a better word, and I had that portfolio prepared. So I think that definitely benefited me. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been watching your YouTube channel since I was at uni, so what, 5-6 years? So I mean, you've been a big name in publishing even before you got into publishing for quite a while, I think, personally.
Yeah, it's just you.
No, it's so many other people, I'm sure.
I think, yeah, because when I started making videos, I think 8, 9 years ago, so it's been quite a grandma of the booktube world. And at the time, going way back, you know, there wasn't as much communication with YouTube or Instagram at all, and publishers. And so I think I was one of those people who kind of made the gap a little bit, and kind of attended events with publishers and kind of had a communication way before I ever wanted to do anything in publishing. So I think I was always kind of involved from kind of outside, kind of looking through the glass, just waving in. But so yeah, it really shaped my whole career, everything. You know, if I wasn't on social media and if I hadn't have created, you know, the content, I guess, the brand to a certain extent online as I did, I wouldn't have even considered working in publishing, and therefore the door would never have even opened. that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think having social media, I mean, before we even looked into getting into publishing, being a book blogger, being a booktuber, we were already a major part of the publishing world because we were consumers and we were promoting books, which kind of leads in nicely to the next question, which is how would you, when using social media, how do you promote a book and what are the core things to remember? And I mean, we've got perspective of that from both sides now, as purely as a consumer and a reader and as a publisher / marketer. So what would you think are the core things to remember?
I think community and in the same way the audience, which are two slightly different things in the way I think the whole for our social media campaigns, because it is very, organic, social based, the most important thing to do, I think, in promoting a book is creating a community around something and a buzz around something. And therefore also knowing the audience that you're, putting this book to, whether that's on your own social media or in my job, knowing, if I've got a book about a kind of a cozy cafe, I need to know exactly what kind of asset I'm going to use or create, what image I'm going to create, and therefore who I'm going to send that book to. I think they're the key things, or two key things, I think.
No, I mean, if anyone hasn't already checked out One More Chapter's like social media channels, go and check them out.
Please do. That's my my days doing. It's it's a lot of fun, but I think it's very specifically aimed. I think we get our community engagement down to a certain extent, and engaging with our community and the people who read our books. I feel like our readers are basically the integral part of everything I do. And in the same way, when I would just be on my own YouTube channel, it would be very much about the people that will watch it on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think having my Twitter and my blog, something that I learned is naturally, just without even, subconsciously about realizing it, is I learned how to talk to my audience, which then it makes it easier when you go into a job, because you suddenly know, well, this is how I would talk to my audience. This audience reacts this way. It just becomes a process you pick up a lot quicker. And so for me, I think, the core things for me is I'm really big on authenticity on social media. I never want to be that person that comes across as fake or bought off. And it's the same as working with HarperCollins and working any job, as well as working on my own social media. So I always make sure that I'm talking to my audience. I'm not talking at them. They know that they can trust me. And it's, as a brand, I think you have to be trustworthy. You want people to come back. You want them to, when you say this book is incredible, it's the must-read whatever of this year, or it's the most addictive thing, the one sit whatever, you want them to come back. So I think that's being authentic, being trustworthy is a big thing. And then, I don't know about you, but the other thing in terms of like a marketing sphere is having that hook that just brings people in. As like having a great community, having an engaged readership, and being yourself is brilliant. But if you need a book or a product that's a word or a hashtag or a cover or a character, just something that just legitimately draws your eye and brings it to them. So I think for me, authenticity and having the right hook is really important when promoting a book on social media.
Yeah, because you need to have something there that the community gathers around, and ultimately we love books, and that's the big part of our passion, and the aim of the game is to make sure that book reaches as many people as possible. And I think with the authenticity, I think that's especially come into prominence even in the last couple of years, even more so, in the way I think that what is not to big up like Avon and like One More Chapter, but like I do think there's personality there as well in a lot of kind of not just HarperCollins, in publishing. It's quite important to have, I think, a personal relationship with people within the social media and in the campaign, and then having almost a face, but the person behind the campaign as well, being able to know that you'll trust them. And it's, I think, how kind of influencer marketing has kind of changed the game a bit in the way that we maybe do things. Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's like, I know that it's a kind of controversial brand, but I mean, at the minute, but the brand that always comes to mind, like a big advertising world, is like Virgin, because of Richard Branson, and because he's not doing any of the day-to-day work, but because it's a face to a name, you feel like when you go with that brand. Yeah. So it's the same thing kind of with you obviously running your amazing Instagram stories, One More Chapter. People feel like they're talking to you, and it's kind of a more one-on-one relationship, which isn't always possible, particularly in a big corporate job, but it's something that you can definitely practice on your own personal social media, which I think is a brilliant skill to have when you go into marketing, even if you can't carry it on in the same way. So but I think there's so many things. It's really, there's no one thing that's really important when it comes to promoting a book. It's a mix of lots of different things, and you'll learn it over time. And one thing, something that I will definitely would like to talk about is what platform you think is the best social media platform for promoting books, because this is kind of a controversial one for a lot of people.
So, you know what, it's strange because for my answer, I think would maybe be different to what works best in my job.
Mm-hmm.
I am 100% for Instagram as an amazing marketing tool for kind of promotion of books, mainly because that's where I discover all of my books. I wish I could say it was YouTube, but it's, YouTube in a way maybe has taken a slight back seat, because I think they often run together now. Often people have both. For me, I think Instagram's amazing because it's so visual, and I realise that's Mel just sending me a message. If you heard that, I'll try and turn up my manager, making sure I'm still doing things. Basically, I think Instagram is so visual and you can create a real community, and I think you can kind of capture someone's attention really, really quickly. For what I've seen personally in terms of it all, I think demographic is a big part of it. For where I work, I would say Facebook is where we get our readers, and that's where our most engagement is. So I think it really depends on actually what you're working on. And I think it's really important to remember that we, especially in marketing, in jobs, we aren't the audience. You have to separate from, well, actually, I would love to do this on Instagram, but I think actually where are the readers going to be for this book? They might be on Facebook. Obviously, that can be massive generalizations, but I think it's important to step outside ourselves. But for me personally, Instagram. I don't know. What about you?
No. I think it's very true about the generalizations across the board. I mean, I said this in the last workshop, when you're kind of planning who your audience is and who you're marketing this book to, it's better to start off really broad and be kind of stereotypical. It's like, if this book I think is someone that 45 plus is going to read, I'm probably going to use Facebook more than I'm going to use Instagram, because we know, just based on anecdotal evidence, that Instagram is used by younger generations. Same for TikTok. I'm not going to market a book I think 50 plus year old readers are going to read on TikTok when I don't think they're there yet.
Marketing.
Sorry?
You done any TikTok marketing yet?
Not yet, but I really want to. It's kind of on my I have like a bucket list of things I want to do, which is I'm constantly adding things to. And TikTok is something that, I mean, I've got something coming. I'm just gonna drop that in. Something's coming. So keep an eye out for that, people. But but I think, this is the beauty of social media. They're constantly evolving, constantly adding new ones. Snapchat was new a few years ago. Instagram Reels. Instagram has done so much to adapt from what it was when it first launched. But in terms of recommending one platform, I don't think there is a platform that if you're going to market a book, you need to market, because it's, like I say, demographic based. Also, for me, it's kind of a bit of personal preference comes into it, because I feel like my strengths lie more on the Twitter side of things. I know how to talk to my readers, but I'm not that great at visual things. So I think they look incredible. I have such respect for bookstagrammers. I think it's an amazing skill, and I follow tons and tons with the perfectly curated feed, but personally I don't have the time, the patience, or the skill, I think, to create those really flashy bookstagram flat lays and things like that. But it is, like you say, a remarkable platform for promoting books up to a certain demographic. But for me, it's kind of Twitter and Facebook. But it's difficult because Twitter, there's that fact that when you post on Twitter, what you post will last for 15 minutes and then it's lost. 15 minutes basically your tweet time, and then after that no one will see it because of the algorithm, because of the amount of content. And then with Facebook it's a lot longer, but about the age difference. So it's hit and miss. But I would say, if anyone has to kind of choose or focus on one, to choose the one that you feel most confident with, because
always.
Yeah, because it's really, you can develop your skills. I'm definitely developing my Instagram skills now, but I've been in marketing for 3 years and I'm only just doing it. Whereas Twitter, I've kind of got down. Just need to get rid of the typos now, and then it'll be perfect. So.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I think you're spot on, because there's no point stressing about something that just doesn't feel right to you, because I know we all do stuff for work, and therefore, yeah, you will have to use certain platforms for work. But if you're doing anything, for yourself, whether that's promoting your own work or whether trying to get in to publishing, there is no point you stressing at something and hating it when it's supposed to be something that's fun. I, do use Twitter, but I get quite nervous about tweeting just because I'm not, the best writer always. So I kind of will sit over a draft for a long time, whereas it's a lot easier for me to just whip my camera out as I do all the time and take a picture and then put it on. And that's, for me, in almost like the opposite to you, Ellie, is like where my natural instinct would go to. But it's supposed to be fun. There's supposed to be some element of fun, in this harsh, cruel world. We have to grasp onto those things. So yeah, I definitely don't feel like there isn't a one size fits all.
No, I mean, you and I should tag team, honestly. You with your visual, me with my writing. We'd smash this industry. It'll be brilliant. But I mean, this kind of ties in nicely with the next question, but also brings it back to what you said about community building, and that's how to develop an engaged readership via social media even, because having engaged readers, even consumers, people that come back to the brand for the book, obviously you want them to come back for the author, you want them to come back in general, but of course you need to keep them engaged, and that means constantly is it constantly posting, or is it just kind of constantly creating content that's engaging? What do you think creates an engaged social media?
I think going back to what you said about authenticity, about just being real, with them, I think there's a lot of pressure. You always see these posts where like you have to post 7 times, a day, otherwise you won't get any engagement or and like people always say there's the right amount and you will get this at the end, and that's just never the case. I think you just have to respect people and respect that they aren't robots and numbers at the end, at the other side of the screen, because I'm sure like you, I spend quite a lot of my time looking at data and analysing those numbers on my screen and looking if the followers have dropped and what's the click-throughs and why aren't people clicking, and you can kind of forget that the people behind there are also human and that therefore they need a human interaction, whether that's a reply, whether that's, if they've commented on a book that they like, saying, well, actually, we're working on this one, would love to, send it to you a bit early, and just kind of actually creating a conversation, because I think it has, fundamentally it's supposed to be a social thing, and I think we can kind of forget that. So you have to treat a community in the way that any other community outside of the internet would be treated, which would be, with conversation.
Yeah. It sounds so stupid, but it literally has just clicked with me what you just said with the whole, it's social media. We're meant to be having a conversation here. This is how you engage people. We're not just talking to a wall, we're talking to actual human beings who want to talk back, or hopefully want to talk back. But to do that, you need to open the conversation and keep it open. So that's really big, because I think as a marketer, I do sometimes get into data holes where I spend so much time analyzing the data and having a look at how many people clicked on this and how many people tweeted this or retweeted that, and then you forget there's an actual person behind that. And so it's kind of, I've stopped doing that so much. Now I start doing things like surveys, which I know aren't the most fun things in the world, but I mean, a small survey just saying, what do you enjoy, or what would you like to see more of, is so much more informative than me basically making a guessing game based on my numeracy skills. And I do this with my personal social media as well as with my work social media. So I found, this is a bit of an anecdote going off tangent a bit, but for me, my top posts on my personal social media are mostly to do with these workshops and talking about publishing, and because that's, I'm discovering, is kind of my audience, that's my niche, is what I love talking about, and so therefore that authenticity comes through. But the other thing is my writing, and the reason I discovered this is because during lockdown I wrote a novel, and I did a tweet about writing a sex scene whilst I was staying at my parents', and my mum walked in and I tweeted about it, and my dad read the tweet and told my mum, who then told her entire friendship group. And I'm going, like I said, off piece, but the engagement on that was huge. I was like, oh my God, they like these funny, real me, silly kind of, they don't just want, I've got a workshop coming, or here's a new blog post. They also want to hear about my daily life. And that I kind of applied to my job by saying, look, this is what the team do during the daily, for working from home. And this is what this author does when they're working from home, and just kind of applying that. They want to know about the people as much as the books. It's not just the products. It's, like I said, behind the wall, that conversation starter. They want to see your cats. They want to see your dogs. big tip, if anyone ever gets into marketing, if an author has a dog or a cat, make them show them on social media, because their likes will go through the roof.
It's really true, because whenever I do like our analytics, and if I've taken, I think it's also a personality thing, because I'm kind of quite online, you know, I'm quite okay with my face being everywhere. I don't know if everyone else feels the same way, but I'm everywhere. So I always like look at our, you know, our top posts and things like that. And often if, you know, there's a picture of me with, I don't know, working from home, or it says one of our authors, an actual picture of a human goes down really well, because I think sometimes, as you say, it's important to kind of take a step back and then go, what are people like actually liking? And I think 9 times out of 10 it will be that more human, you know, kind of response. And I think it is sometimes hard when you are maybe within a corporation for a lot of people to find that voice in there. But I think, you know, if you do kind of explore that more personal side of things, I think the results really show, because it's what I think social media kind of was almost invented for, was for a sense of a human connection with people. It's if to waste that.
That's true. If you can't do it as a marketing professional because of being in a corporation, or because of time constraints even, it's the sort of thing you can tell your authors to do to promote their books. Because a lot of time I get so many authors asking me, what should I post about? It's like, don't just post it's 99p now, or it's out now, or write a review. Post about you and your processes, and, you know, pictures of yourself and your cat and whatever stuff, so that they get to know you and they trust you and they like you. Because it's a bit like making friends, and it is like that open conversation. But I mean, going back to your comment about having your face everywhere, so I mean, I'm okay with it, but I do not have a YouTube channel in the sense where I sit down and make videos. But it's something, I mean, I've tried it in the past, just not for me. It's that personal preference thing. In again, with the amount of work and the skill it takes, honestly, I'm in awe of you, Claire. But on that note, though, if people want to start a YouTube channel, be it about books or publishing, or about anything at all, I mean, it's still a side hustle, it's still showing skill. What would your recommendations and top tips be about starting a channel?
I think, you know, the one thing I'll say is the thing that everybody says, and it's the most annoying thing ever, and it's to just start one. You know, you can talk about it until the cows come home, but if you don't get your login and you don't actually set it up, then you're not doing anything. Like, you're just worrying about it. And I know it's the most annoying thing, because it is so easy for me to say that, one, already having a channel, and also just because, you know, when sometimes people say like, oh, if someone's got an exam, they're really worried about it, and they're like, oh, you'll be fine. It's like, well, yeah, of course, because you're not doing it. Like, you don't have that, you know, the anxiety around it. So I think starting it's really important. And I think also just to kind of know what you're passionate about. I think passion is infectious, and it is the most beautiful thing about the world and about people. And it's a thing that, you know, when you see someone across the room and you know that they like Wuthering Heights, it's like, you know, we're meant to be, we can have this conversation. For me, it's normally like true crime and, you know, murderers, but it's, you know, it's a different conversation starter. So I kind of feel like if you know what you're passionate about, and you want to start a channel, you already have so much in your pocket to start with, because you just need to create things that you enjoy. I am aware, obviously, there are barriers to entry with everything. I think when I started, I mean, I'm coming from a perspective of privilege, but I'm also coming from the perspective of someone who made their channel in 2011, and I didn't, you know, I was filming on my webcam, I think, until like 2017. Like, I was late to getting a camera, and I've only just got editing software that wasn't a weird version of like Windows Movie Maker. So I'm aware that nowadays YouTube looks so fancy. Like, people are already starting their channels with amazing cameras, all this stuff, and it can feel very daunting because of that. But you find the best people once you start, and you will find people who are also passionate about what you're passionate about. And the tip, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but
that's fine. It will make sense. It's all really good.
One tip that, you know, came to me recently, because if I'm being honest, I think me and Ellie have spoken about, you know, kind of analysing our own social media. I was kind of looking at my social stats and kind of noticing there were certain points I was like stagnating. And I was like, I wonder why nothing's moving. And then I had the realisation, have I spoken to anybody new in the community for a while? And I was like, do I watch enough booktube to really keep conversations now? Because it's not the same as it was in 2015, where I made all my friends. I was like, to actually be involved in this conversation, I need to watch people, make new friends, engage with people, and that's how you start it all kind of moving. Because again, it's supposed to be about you making connections with people and commenting on other like people's videos. You can't expect everybody to come to you. You need to kind of go and find your people first. And a lot of people I've met through the years have either had channels and that's how we've met, or they've like commented on one of my videos going, I really want to make one, and I'll say, if you make one, I'll watch it. And then that's kind of how it all starts. So you need to know what you're passionate about. You need to be actively involved in the community, because it's not as small as it was. Surprise, surprise. It took off, it grew, and it's a huge kind of thing now. So you need to be involved and get to know people. But ultimately, you just need to get a Google account, set one up, and start filming. And your first video will be probably awful, because mine, I wish could never be seen again. It's made private, but I haven't deleted it, so I occasionally still come across it and feel my eyes kind of burn. But yeah,
I'm sure it was great.
sorry, that was a bit of a long spiel.
No, that was good, because it kind of a lot of the stuff you actually said actually does apply to just social media and working in general as an author or as a marketer, because of that whole being passionate. And also the big thing from that is making sure you don't just sit back and wait for your audience to find you. I mean, as marketing professionals, that's literally what we're paid to do, is to go out and get people. We're basically like sheep herders. We're like, come to us, people, come join us, come read these books. And it's the same with whether it be your personal social media or work social media, or as an author with your book. I mean, there's a reason you have a marketing professional or a publicist to help you get your book out there. And the author is just as involved as anyone else. So it's kind of, I really like that. And I appreciate the message and the reminder that it's not just sitting and wait like, well, I'm a big corporation, they'll come to me. It's like, no, they won't. There are new readers coming in every day.
You kind of, I think everybody think, we're all very, very like important people, and in our lives we're all the stars of our own show, and that's how it should be, because that is the way that we keep on moving through life. But sometimes it was good for me to have a reminder that it wasn't anything that came from kind of me being like, oh, I'm amazing. It wasn't anything that came from me having a massive ego. I think I genuinely, because I'd been doing it for so long, I just kind of forgot how it worked. And therefore I can also understand for authors who maybe have been writing for a long time that maybe haven't had social media, you kind of feel, well, I've done it, so I'll just sit back and it's there because I've got the thing people will be interested in, they should be interested in it. And that is 100% right, but it's also just not the way, as we said before, it's not the way a conversation works. There has to be two people, and it has to be, something that two people also have to get something out of it. Whether that's kind of a genuine conversation, or someone goes and buys your book at the end and they have a great time, they leave a review and all that stuff. But yeah, I think everybody, I mean, I was totally sitting there being like, oh gosh, I haven't grown for a while. But of course I wasn't helping anybody else grow at the same time, because I was just making stuff and then not doing anything. So it was I think in social media, whether that's on our own kind of channels, on marketing in general for work or authors, you also just have to remind yourself of why you do stuff and how it works, because it can get lost.
Yes, and it all ties back to that. I'm just constantly bringing stuff back and forth, but it all ties back to that idea of community as well. So
Yeah.
you've got to build up your own community. It's why, I mean, obviously we work at the same company but across different divisions. But if at any point Claire needs help with a book and I can support on my channels, it's like, yeah, bring it on. And it's the same for any company. I mean, obviously company dependent, but on my personal channels, even if someone at a different company to the one I work with has this book that I love, and they said, oh, would you like a copy, or would you review it, or it's like, yeah, yes, of course I will. It's a book. I want to shout about literature and reading in general and authors. I'm not just this is where I sit and this is the only books I talk about. It's that authenticity again. So
if you did, do you know what I mean? If we didn't kind of expose ourselves to different books and different worlds, we would be very bored, I think, in general.
Yeah,
got to put that side sometimes.
precisely. And we're in this industry because we love books, be it a writer, be it a publisher, be it a general consumer or book blogger, booktuber. We're in it because we love books. So I mean, that's why I love my job and I love being a marketer, because I shout about books all day. And then last question of our pre-prepared questions before we go into Q&A. So definitely, if you have a question in mind, do drop it in the chat or the Q&A box now, and we'll get to it in just a moment. But Claire, do you consider your social media a personal brand available to, so following on from what I just said, available to promote your campaigns and other books, or do you consider it kind of a separation of church and state? And what do you think? Is it your personal brand?
You know, when you kind of, we had this quick conversation about what you were going to ask, I then like had a really like kind of a big talk with myself about like, who am I? What is my brand?
It's very deep.
Oh, and then I got into the whole of what's my aesthetic? Do I have aesthetic? Am I dark academia, light academia? It went on a whole journey. I think in a way this is interesting because I made a decision quite early on working at HarperCollins and working within my division that I would actually keep my social media quite separate to the books I was working on, mainly because it's such a small company that I think the authors already knew who I was, which was amazing. And I have they're wonderful and I have great relationships with them. But I never wanted to have that scenario where someone was like, oh, you tweet about my book, will you tweet about mine? And then there's a slight slippage of what is work and what's mine. But at the same time, I've created a brand, as in, I think brand's very useful in the way that there are some bookstagrammers and booktubers who I know when a thumbnail comes up, I know it's them and I know it's their picture, and that builds a sense of community and a recognition, and that is so important in our social media and also in work, to having something that's kind of recognizable. But I'm also a socialist, so I'm a little bit wary of kind of when my social media becomes corporate. You have to have a space for you. If building your social media like a brand really sets your heart on fire and it's what you love to do and you love having a set aesthetic and set being, I'm going to post this today and this today, it's going to be branded like this, amazing, do it. But you have to have space, I think, for also you to be free on social media. And if you're anything like me, you'll be calling for revolution, it'll be a massive left wings, what I do in my space. But how do you feel? Because do you I feel like yours is a little bit more combined. Maybe I'm just really harsh to my authors. Maybe I just...
No, don't. I live in fear of that day as well, because I never ever, I don't want to alienate anybody, and I don't want to alienate authors that I used to work with as well. So from previous companies, yeah, I still support them. I still love them. I still love their books. I'm so proud to have worked on them. I still want to, but at the same, it is a very, you've got to be conscious and polite, and but at the same time be yourself. Like I said, authenticity. So for me, I do consider my social, namely my Twitter and all of them, to be honest, a personal brand. And I want people to read my Twitter, read my blog, and watch my Instagram stories, and then meet me and think to yourself, oh my God, she's exactly the same person. I don't want them to think, oh, she's different on Twitter, or she's so fake on Instagram. I don't want that. I want people to see me when I've got no makeup on, haven't washed my hair, and I'm just like bald. That's my Instagram stories, if anyone ever watches them, by the way.
I love your stories. I think you nail it. I feel like I go on a journey with you every weekend.
Side hustles, like Side Hustle Sunday, like, hi guys.
I love it.
And then I go and make a smoothie. Yeah, tangent. But I do consider it my personal brand, and partly that's because I think, having worked in recruitment, I think social media is becoming a bigger and bigger part of the interview and recruitment process. I actually consider namely my Twitter, I'd say, as partly my CV and partly my portfolio, because it shows what I can do, but it also shows what I have done. Because on my social media, I will shout about every success I have, be it in a career space or just the life space. I planned my sister's hen do and it went well. I was like, I'm so happy, I'm going to shout about this. And then, the Nibbies and the Trailblazer Award and other really amazing stuff that's happened over the last few months. And I'm going to shout about that as well. It's not arrogance, it's confidence, people. There's a difference. But I think of my social media as the place to do that, because, as I say, it's my CV and my portfolio. So I am also very conscious of what I post, and that dirty laundry, never air your dirty laundry. And a rule of thumb for me is, if I don't want my parents to see it, be it if they're on that platform or not, I don't post it, because if I don't want my parents to see something, that's likely I don't want my future colleagues or my future bosses or my future partner or anyone to kind of see that. And that's kind of like, if I'm unsure, I don't post it. And it's the same with work as well. If I think to myself that's not the best line, or there's something not right with that, I don't post it. I go back to the editors. So you've got to be constantly thinking about that. But I think for me, it is a personal brand, and it has, like I said, it gave me all my first 3 jobs in publishing, and it's largely because of it.
You use them quite differently. So even though, let's say, you're kind of like, PG across all of them, do you think that because your Instagram, like your stories, obviously again they're only there for like 24 hours unless you put highlights, so I guess you maybe have that on your side, but because they are more informal, do you, I guess in the same way that I like Instagram is probably more professional, and then I'm like probably a little bit more like sharing memes and left-wing things on Twitter. So do you kind of
Opposite.
yeah, it is. I'm kind of like, I need to think about my Twitter.
No, it's great because Instagram is just as big as Twitter now, and everyone uses different platforms.
So I can understand why that would be more CV based, because also if someone, let's say, again, I don't know how legal this is for people to do, but if, let's say, an employer looked you up on social media, I almost feel like they'd more likely go to Twitter than Instagram.
Yeah, I feel like Instagram is a bit strange because you're looking at someone's personal photos. I mean, it's not always their personal photos; it's their Bookstagram or something. But yeah.
I mean, rightly, we're also moving to blind recruitment, and so I guess it would also be a lot later in the process. I know, yeah, finally, right?
Now, just want transparency of salaries. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, and pay band's great. But I think, yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm now questioning like how I use my Twitter. I think you have to have space to be yourself, and also I think it comes down to the thing of like when I post anything about, I always say about like socialism, but for me that's not a radical context or content. It's nothing that's, I'm not going to go and burn down a building. It's just I want equality, which would be a lovely thing to have in 2020. So I kind of sometimes I think, oh, would this make maybe a corporation uncomfortable? Maybe, but
you've got to be your authentic self.
But maybe it's good that it makes them feel uncomfortable. Maybe it's good that we challenge things as well. It's a difficult line to cross because ultimately there has to be respect there, but you also have to carve out a space for yourself.
That's very true. That's very true. So I've just realised, obviously, we're a bit over time of what I said, so we're going to go and jump into questions. So I'm just going to open the chat quickly and see what we've got. The first question I can just see is, what is A/B testing? Do you do it in your job, and how do you go about it? So, excuse me. So A/B testing is, I don't know the exact what's the word I'm looking for, like dictionary description of it, but for me it's kind of like group A and group B, and you're testing different groups, different audiences, different assets, assets being pictures, different blurbs or text or things like that. So it is group A and group B. Which one did better? Group A did. Okay, now I'm going to do this group and the same group. Which one did better? That did. That's just A/B testing. And going about it, it's done anywhere really. Facebook advertising, it's done on Google, it's done on social media, polls on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Use it for like newsletters, to test subject lines, to it is just testing what works best and what the most people respond to, and therefore what's the best to send to the majority of people. People use it for covers, copy, anything really, anything that we kind of if we have 2 different directions and we just want to make sure we're sending it to the right people.
Precisely. I think that's really important, like finding your audience and using the right thing and finding your hook. That's another thing. Do you have any advice for the following question? What do you keep in mind when approaching a difficult agent or author or both conversation?
I think remembering that this is, for the author, this is something that's very important to them, and that this is something that is the work of years and is part of a huge part of themselves. And I think respecting that, and being able to kind of, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my phone buzzing.
It's buzzing a bit. Someone really wants to get hold of you.
I'm very popular, Liz. Seriously though, you know when you have no one message you, it's like tumbleweed. And then I do think that my teams, but I was trying to work out how to cancel teams like behind the scenes. Yeah, I think remembering with authors that it's their fate. I'm going to remove my phone off the table. That it's their kind of a huge part of them, and respecting that. Because I think then if there's any anxiety, you can understand that, and you can also rationalize it. And then I think also just dealing with it really, really calmly, to avoid any anxiety on their behalf. And then I think as soon as you assure someone, that automatically makes people feel more comfortable. Should also say it's probably something Ellie deals with a lot more, just because I no longer have as much contact with author and agents as I used to about a year ago, my previous role.
Yeah, I mean, it's in marketing, it's not really author agent focused position. That's more of an editor, editorial kind of role. So for me, the first thing I always do is make sure I speak to the editor, and they're CC'd into every conversation, because they're the one that speaks to them pretty much the entire time, and they should be looped in whatever conversations you have as a marketing professional and an agent author anyway. But when it comes to kind of difficult, I'm trying to think of a difficult conversation I've had, and it's approaching things like if someone that maybe doesn't take advice well, when it comes to like social media, and gently, softly. But yeah, preparing is always a good thing. Making sure that you have, if you making suggestions, have examples. I think that's a key thing as well. But yeah, it's difficult conversations are always, as the name suggests, difficult and awkward. But at the end of the day, you're just humans. So being honest, being calm is very important. But yeah, just like I said, preparing and talking to people beforehand to make sure that you're all on the same page, and listening. That's also very key, is listening, taking notes, and trying to fix things if there are problems. If there are not, then being honest that you can't fix them, or it isn't possible for this reason, X, Y, and Z. But yeah, the editor is definitely your first step on that, I'd say.
And also just remember, I think what me and Ellie always say, after a day, we say no one's going to die.
It's just books.
Just books, right? And then I always follow the conversation with, well, if someone does die, that's very unlucky, but not our fault. Yet that can neither be confirmed or denied. So yeah, it's not the end of the world. And there's a lot of anxiety, especially if you're in the kind of the lower quarters of a company, that it will suddenly enter something, be dramatic, but it never does. So just be assured.
That's okay. You're all humans at the end of the day. It's absolutely fine. And then how do you use the algorithms to your favor, or can you? Do you have to accept that sometimes posts go unnoticed? Yes, and yes. Oh, I hate algorithms. They're constantly changing and they never tell you. So yeah, adapting. I mean, Instagram, remember when they took everything from chronological order to just like what they think you wanted to see? No, Instagram. No.
Do you play games with it? Do you test stuff out? Have you like?
I haven't had time. I'd love to though. Please tell me your ways. It's the sort of thing, just kind of stick it to the man. But no, I haven't played with it as yet. But no, Facebook algorithms as well.
I recently did something on my own social media where I tested doing books with a plain wall, and then just like my normal generic pictures of London, stuff like that. And then I tested if that would change my overall engagement, because I was seeing at the moment that those were getting just shown more people, maybe because the type of hashtags, and also just maybe where Instagram was choosing to reach them. And so I did about, I think, a couple of weeks of doing that kind of like book London, book kind of thing. And I noticed that actually my engagement grew quite significantly just by doing that. And they weren't also, the reason I did it with just a plain background is that they weren't great pictures. It wasn't as though I was creating beautiful flat lays. It was just hold a book up. But there was something in that obviously my community liked, and the algorithm then favored it. And then I grew by like, I think 200 followers within a couple of weeks, which for me was a really great rate. And that I think was just testing out different stuff. So it's not beating the algorithm, but sometimes I think you can't be held down by the algorithm, but just maybe testing out something new, and just trying something that you wouldn't have done before, I think it can kind of give you a hint as to how it works or what it's favoring at the moment. That's just something I did personally, just because I was curious.
I like that. It's like approaching it as if it's not a hindrance, it's not a problem. Instead, it's just an excuse to try something different. It's a more positive way of looking at it.
I mean, you must, like, for your blog, do you ever go back and change? Like, I don't know. I have no knowledge about how blogs work.
No, I mean, I'm doing it at the minute, actually. It's spooky how you know that. But yes, I mean, the stuff that I wrote in 2017 when I had absolutely no knowledge of SEO, social media, social search engine optimization, I still don't know anything about it. And, you know, my design and cohesiveness, I'm going through and updating all of that and making sure that the links aren't broken and things like that, because the general Google search and general search has changed since I started it in 2016, and I've moved hosted platforms and things like that. But I mean, the problem with social media in particular is they never tell you when the algorithm changes. You just have to be expected to know based on results and things. So I mean, for all I know, the Facebook algorithm could have changed 2 months ago and I still have no idea, and the only people that ever know how the algorithm works and what it's meant to be doing are the people that programmed it. Nobody else knows. They will never tell you. So it is a matter of accepting that. And then with regards to kind of posts going unnoticed, it is something that there has to be a bit of acceptance, but also a learning from it. So for me on Twitter, for example, I never post a post just with, you know, a picture and a text. There's always a link. There's normally always a hashtag. I normally always tag the author or someone else, so it gets that kind of traction. I'm hitting different audiences. People can find it. It's not just going to get lost in my profile feed. So you pick up hints and tricks and you try different things whenever you can. But yes, algorithms are the bane of a marketer's existence right now.
Yeah, and it always will be. You know, it will never change.
Yeah.
It's the revolution, my friends.
Need that on a badge. So the next question is, any advice for starting a blog? What is the best platform? Coding also looks very intimidating. Where should I start? So for me, blogging platforms, there are many. I started on Blogger back in 2016. It was free. It was easy. Didn't look great, but you know, it can do. And then I changed to WordPress in 2018 when I was unemployed, looking for a publishing job and had time on my hands. I would say WordPress, but that's only because I'm now very well versed in it. But I mean, Wix is also great. Squarespace is great. I mean, there are tons of platforms out there that are, most of them are free to begin with, and then you pay for things like your domain and your design. I get my design off of Etsy, by the way, £25, done. But with starting a blog, if you want to start one, I would first say don't invest until you've got a few blogs under your belt, because you might discover, a bit like YouTube channel, you might, like me, just discover it's not for you, but that doesn't mean something else isn't. So but just hold off on investing until, you know, after 2 or 3 months you'll know if it's something you really want to consider and try. And with regards to coding, when I say I can code, I really mean the basics of like copy and pasting HTML, coding text from things like MailChimp into a box so that a pop-up comes up on my website, and things like a contact form appears, you know, and a lot of these is just buttons that you can click, but sometimes it is just a matter of copy and pasting. So yeah, there's a few words and things you learn, how, you know, how to paragraph and HTML. I always write as like a Word doc though, so I promise you it's the basics of coding is all you need to get started in this. But yes, I hope that helps. I will probably write a post about this on my blog. So but yes, got about 10 minutes, so I'll speed up a tiny bit. Don't have a blog, YouTube channel, or Bookstagram. Will this hinder my job prospects? I don't think so. I don't think so. So long as you have something, be it, I mean, obviously work experience is key, I think, in this industry, but also any kind of side hustle. Just have to be booktube or bookish based even. It could be anything. It could be a podcast on Walking Dead. It can be you're an artist. It can be you have your own business on Etsy. Honestly, it's I don't think not having one or the other bookish social media is a hindrance to your job prospects. What do you think, Nicola?
I think it also just matters what you want to, that didn't make sense. It depends on what you want to do as well. I don't think it will hinder anything, because I think if you want to, you know, there are so many invaluable people in publishing who are not on social media, and, you know, the company could not function without them. So it won't hinder, but I think if you're specifically going for a marketing role, I would suggest trying something, just because they are the platforms that you will be using a lot, and it's not about necessarily being big. You know, you're not there to kind of get an audience necessarily. It's being able to like I said, doing very maybe basic coding, knowing how to schedule on Facebook, maybe just kind of the skills that having those platforms gives you are what's useful, not necessarily being big on them. It's about what you can learn from them. One thing I'll say is that outside of my kind of social media. I was also a bookseller, and that was one of the things that people really stood out to, like people in interviews. They wanted to know, didn't care about my MA really, which, you know, broke my academia heart, but they wanted to talk to me about my social media content creation and also being a bookseller. So if you're a bookseller, you're already set, but you don't have to be a bookseller. But it's
that's the
another.
thing. You don't have to be anything to get into this industry. You don't have to do this. You don't have to be that. It's just
We'd all be the
do.
same. We'd all be the same. There'd be no diversity at all. It would be one thought process to do everything. The variety of thought is what is important in any business and is what keeps it alive and moving. So never try and copy and paste someone else's career onto your own, because you'll only be upset at yourself for no reason. You're there and valuable because you are there.
Exactly.
In life in general, you have
life in
value.
general.
I can't remember. I can't see her name.
Sorry,
Katie. You have value, Katie. Do not worry. Okay. You'll be fine.
I'm just going to jump to the Q&A section because I realise I've been answering all the questions in the chat. So the first question we got actually was best transferable skills, question mark. What do you think are the best transferable skills in publishing? I think it's endless, that list.
Communication.
Mm-hmm. Okay, design.
Yeah, design. Get yourself on Canva if you want to do marketing, or unless, because I never was able to afford Photoshop, so I just logged on to Canva, which is a free design website. You know,
so many things.
Yeah, I mean,
writing, editing. I mean, that writing kind of covers into editing. If you can do art, illustration is amazing. I'd love to hire someone that's an illustrator to kind of work with me on my team. Obviously, social media in general, filming, photography,
editing.
Yeah, video editing. And I mean, if you're moving from like area to area. So if you're in sales, like the book selling comment you made and everything else, that's a brilliant transferable skill, the knowing of the market and things like that. If you're an editor, proofreading is still very important in marketing, as I am discovering. #typo_queen. You know, it's production. I mean, knowing about, I don't understand production. It's the most complicated but apparently easy thing. I think it's amazing that they can do.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So, I mean, there are so many transferable skills. Again, really blog post.
Say to Katie had a rejection this week. Do not worry. I had loads of rejections. I'm just sorry. It's just becoming me. But you know, Katie, you're wonderful. Sorry.
A fan, Katie. I know, I love it. But yeah, rejections. I didn't even get rejections. I was just ignored. So
yeah.
Yeah. Might have to stay a tiny bit longer to get these questions answered. So Cassie, I am too. We'll stay around a bit longer if people want to, and obviously this will keep recording. But anyway, question is from Cassie. She's an English major looking to get into publishing. She has a book blog, a bookstagram, and a Twitter. Yes, Cassie, very busy. You've mentioned these things helped you get into your career in publishing. However, do publishers take into account how many followers you have while hiring? I don't think so. I don't think they give a damn how many followers you've got. I mean, if you've got 1 million, then maybe, but to be honest, it doesn't matter if you're a macro influencer, not an influencer at all. It's the fact you know how to use it they're interested in.
And also I think influencers with loads of following, I think amazing, wonderful, they're incredible people, but it's what's interesting is when you look at followers and you look at engagement and whether you have an engaged community. It does not matter if you've got 1 million people following you if only a couple are actually interested in what you're saying. But to us, I don't think anybody really cares about. I think it's us that cares about numbers. I think it's us that stares at our own analytics, comparing ourselves. I don't think it actually comes up ever in publishing.
No. I've never had a single person I've worked with ever say to me, oh, how many followers have you got? They only ever say to me, oh, I really like that blog post you did on this topic X, Y, and Z, or that was really clever, or actually, no, they've never told me I'm clever. Pity me. No, I'm kidding. But, you know, they don't ever mention numbers. It's like Claire said, it's all, we focus on that part. Yeah. It's not them. So don't worry about that in the slightest.
It's really important. It's not important. And also, we have to remember that I think even I have like social media and stuff, but I'm a very small fish in a very big pond. So, you know, I'm not like sitting here as an influencer, you know. I'm very much just a fish, you know, not even just there like all of us.
You're a very talented fish.
That's a useful one. Claire's a fish. What we take away from this.
You're a very talented fish, though. Amy has asked, she's worked in publicity and she struggles to create a balance between books. She's working on campaigns, i.e. sharing the review coverage she gets, or her own content on Twitter. It really is a proper balance. And she asks if it's better to just highlight what she's passionate about or if she should use both. I think as a publicist, it's even more difficult than a marketing professional, because obviously your job is to get that coverage, and of course you want that coverage to reach as many people as possible. But at the same time, you know what's right for you and your channel and everything else. So I think if you worry that you're posting too much about work and less stuff about you, and you want to be posting more about your own personal brand and personal projects, then you know what to do. Start posting more. And you know, it's like I say, it is a balance, and you can try different things, and no one will penalize you, I hope, for using your personal social media in the way that you want to use it, so long as obviously it's within the rules of being a good person.
Yeah. I think also maybe consider like starting a different account, maybe.
Yeah.
You know?
If you can balance that, if you can handle the
Yeah.
kind of the juggling. To be honest, I do have a personal Instagram and a works Instagram, or like a publishing Instagram. I've now integrated to just using my publishing Instagram, really, because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to keep them separate anymore. But for a time I did, and it was fine.
I think always just follow your gut feeling. Yeah, it's a hard one though. And I feel like by both Ellie and I's answers, you can see that we also have the same kind of like, yeah, what should I do? I don't think there's a right answer to this. I think, Amy, you got it. You got it.
Just aware of how dark it's getting in my flat. I have to turn the light on a second. So anonymous attendee has asked, how should you go about utilising social media for a small indie press where the books and authors aren't particularly well known? Oh, been there, done that. It is, I think it's actually very exciting, because the challenge is to be discovered. And you can also do anything and be extra creative, because that's what you want to stand out. So if you're just sharing the traditional kind of cover reveals and price promotions, that's not going to make you stand out and kind of grow your engagement and everything else. You want to, like Claire said previously, reach out to readers that you think will enjoy the books and get yourself known in that area and network a bit, but also be creative and, like I said, stand out and do something really interesting and eye-catching, or as we say, thumb-stopping. Be thumb-stopping.
Good one. I think even though I obviously don't work for a small indie press, I work for like the opposite. I have a very similar experience with our books and our authors. We, publish a lot of debuts, very commercial fiction. So there's probably quite a lot of similarities between actually how we work in different ways within our own kind of businesses. Obviously that in itself makes it very different. But I think just again, like just Ellie says, you have, the world is your oyster at this point. There's no preconceived conceptions of what the authors are like, or what maybe that press is going to do. You can really be innovative and start something new within the press that maybe some corporations may not be able to do because of time, or because of if you're in a corporation that has a lot of corporations on top of it, you may be able to have a little bit more freedom. And like, what amazing experience. And I think we probably actually work quite similarly, so don't think that we use social media that differently from how like you will, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've just noticed something at 7 o'clock, so I just want to note that if people have to leave now, it's absolutely fine. I'm going to keep recording. We'll answer a few more questions. We're probably not going to get through them all in this session, but for the people that are asking about things like CVs, cover letters, and interviews, in 2 weeks' time, I'll be doing another workshop on how to ace a publishing interview. And also, secretly, although not so secretly, I've also set up my next workshop in October, which is how to find a side hustle in publishing, which is all about kind of developing those extra skills that we've been talking about today. There'll be another October workshop coming out ready to book shortly, but that is top secret for the time being. Until then, though, if you do have to go, thank you so much for joining. And I am going to go away from my curtain to get more light, because I can't see myself anymore. And then Claire and I will answer just a few more questions, and then before we say goodbye. If we have missed your questions and you do have to go, please feel free to tweet us I'm at Ellie Pilcher 95, and Claire is at
Claire Fenby, which I realise Fenby is the worst name to spell, but it's
on your Zoom thing.
Oh wow! Oh gosh, we are fast. Posh. Don't know what I'm too. We also You tell it's been a
prepared.
long
Happy
day.
Tuesday. 1 minute, I'm going to open my window.
Now we've got it to ourselves, guys. Any questions? Ellie's not in the room.
Sorry, I'm so conscious of the light. I was like, I'm getting darker by the moment. Anyway, we'll just, I'll say, jump in a few more of these questions. So, have you only ever worked in marketing, or have you worked in other parts of publishing? If so, how was it? So I've only ever worked in marketing and publishing recruitment. I really enjoy recruitment. Actually, I was only there for 8 months, but I got a massive overview of the entire publishing industry across the board, across the country, in fact, across the world. We did Dubai as well. So I'm out of breath now from the curtains. So fit, but yes, but marketing is my where my passion and where my expertise lies. But yes, I did work in recruitment, publishing recruitment as well, which I thought was great. You've done book selling, of course?
Yeah, I've done book selling, and I guess I've also worked as like just a content creator, freelance for publishing companies, which I guess is still marketing and publicity. I've done a bit more publicity in my time as well, but mainly marketing, kind of social media management almost is kind of what I've spent a lot of time doing.
Yeah. I did just forget, I have actually worked in publicity before. My previous job at Canelo, I was a marketing and publicity exec, but because it was digital, it was very, very different to the traditional publicity that you'll see. But I mean, I did work with journalists and work with reviewers and bloggers, but on a very, very small scale. So it was more a brief overview rather than actually working fully in publicity. But
that's the same. I work a lot with bloggers, but not in a way that an actual kind of press officer or publicity assistant or anything above would work probably.
What we got, if we're starting off in publishing, it is suggested that we create another social media presence. For example, in my case, this is Jeffrey. Hi, Jeffrey. I have a book coming out and would like to market it, but I am one person. All of my personal socials have had droppings of marketing for the book, but I would like to know if it would be suggested to create a separate presence. Okay, so if you're an author, I do know quite a few people that have like an author profile and then a personal profile, just because it's a lot easier to kind of market your own book as an author than it is to market your own book as a, to your friends and to your family. It really is a choice thing, I think. So as a writer myself, I'm absolutely fine with sharing it to my family and friends. It was an initial kind of nerves and I'm embarrassed, but for me it's fine. But I know a lot of people, I work with a lot of authors that have solely got an author presence and then they keep their personal life separate. But I think there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's what you're comfortable with, I think. And like I said, you can balance both. If you think you can work with both, then go for it.
Yeah, I think we'd only suggest another profile if that's what you feel like would work best for you. It's really up to you. I think you can kind of look at a lot of authors and see what they're doing and see how they manage their more kind of reader facing, consumer facing front, and having a look at what they're doing on social media. And then you can, I think, just try it out, just see how you feel. But there's also no point, I guess, marketing just to your friends and family. So you need to
find your readers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. This is a good question, actually. Someone's asked, if it's anonymous, they've asked if they could, how do you use social media even to promote books as an author who is reluctant to share things about themselves, including photos? This is, again, something I have worked with authors before that they're just not interested in kind of having their personal life and their book. They just want it to be about the book and the characters. It is a challenge in a different way, but it is still, I'd say, a challenge. But I mean, there are different things you can do. One of the big things for me is actually, as an author, you should support other authors because that will raise your profile. You're not piggybacking off of them. That's not what I mean. But working with them and, promoting the genre and this kind of themes. So a lot of crime authors do this, for example. They support each other, they share each other's works, they talk about each other's characters and inspirations without ever showing their faces, because some people, I've previously worked with crime authors that have been lawyers and police officers who did not want it to be known who they were in real life because it could impact their jobs. And so in that respect, it was, complete dead end. They did not tell anybody, the world, anything about themselves. Some of them created personas, so they really built up a pseudonym, and then other people just kind of, like I said, supported other people, other authors, talked about their books purely from a sales perspective or a character's perspective without doing anything personal. It is definitely doable. Like I said, it's just that extra challenge to kind of make sure that you engage with your readers without that personal touch.
Yeah, and I think also like depends on how you define what a personal touch is. If kind of sharing your face and doing videos yourself, if that for you is just a line, that's completely fair, and would never want someone to do something they're uncomfortable with under any circumstances. I think whether, you know, you could think, well, would sharing where I'm writing today, what my desk looks like, what my favorite drink to drink while I'm writing, what's my favorite, you know, snack to eat, if that is something that still feels too personal, you know, that may not be thinking how, that might not be the way you were thinking of personal. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, hi, I've got a new book out, this is me in my new suit or something like that. It can just be, this is where I sit to write, and you never have to actually be present. But even that more informal conversation, I think, builds up a personal connection. So it depends on where you draw the line, and knowing that is really important to then kind of give you understanding of what you want to do on your social media. But again, it is very much personal preference. But getting involved in communities, you know, especially if you're a genre writer, I'm not quite sure what you write, but you know, the RNA is amazing, the Crime Writers Association is amazing, and getting involved in communities will kind of help you guide your way, because you'll take inspiration from other writers.
I'm just going to answer this one really quickly rather than do it as like a panel-y thing, and that is, if starting a blog, would you recommend having pictures within the blog post or just focusing on the written word? I always recommend having something visual because that's what's eye-catching. Just having text on any social media platform is fine, but it doesn't have the same engagement at all. So if you're doing a blog, include photos or images or stock images, absolutely fine. So that's just answering that one quickly. Someone has asked, and this is a question for you, Claire, is there a particular direction for you that you would advise, going for Bookstagram? There seems to be a split between book reviewers and then general bookish content. Which is more likely to get you hired than the other, do you think?
You know what, it doesn't matter, to be honest, because I think even when I look at my own social media, and kind of what I look at my Bookstagram, I do not follow what is actually a Bookstagram account. I do not post enough books to actually count probably as a Bookstagram account, but I'm still within that world. So you have to do what you find most interesting. I don't think one will get you hired over another. I just think it's what speaks to you, and if it speaks to you, you'll do better because you'll be enjoying it, you'll create better content, and then you'll get engagement hopefully because of that, rather than forcing yourself to do something that you just think you should do because it's what people are doing.
A good answer. We've got two more in the Q&A which we'll try and rattle through. So Abby has asked, she's promoting a student anthology of creative writing which is self-published by the university cohort. How could she get people interested in new writers? The thing I would say about this, Abby, this is it's a self-plug. Definitely go and check out the previous workshop on writing a marketing plan, because that will help you just kind of pinpoint who your readers are, what platforms to use, and how to get it out there and be a bit more creative. But with this, I would definitely, if with it's the new writers, introduce the writers. That's a key thing for me. I know that we keep talking about the personal and the authenticity side of things, that engagement, but definitely get them involved, introduce them, where they write, where they get their inspiration, blog posts, video, Twitter takeover, Instagram takeover, you know, all of this stuff I think is definitely utilize them. And if for some reason you can't, then it's really about the writing that you should be promoting. So extract shares, reading it aloud, that sort of thing, getting them excited about the written word.
And if it's students, I feel like there's also already set communities that have been made. And you're already in a quite a structured community to a certain extent, and within that there'll be separate communities that you can speak to and get involved in. I'm also aware that we're talking in a time of Corona where things are different, which is a whole other conversation for another workshop, I'm sure. Getting involved in the communities and getting them involved, because the whole thing is, if you involve them, you share audiences and you share reach by just involving more people. Never think that you have to do it all by yourself.
Yes, big thing. Last question from the Q&A before we sign off, and it's from Caroline, and she said, following on from the small press question, with small or zero budget, what are your priorities when establishing a marketing plan? For me, because I have previously worked on a lot of books with small to zero budgets, and it is about being as creative as possible, standing out that respect, and also who are your readers, because if you don't have budget, or you have very limited amount of budget, you have to be selective as to who you market the book to. And that's when you start thinking to yourself, okay, are my readers people that are younger? Instagram's probably the better bet. My readers older, Facebook's probably a better bet. Is it paperback? Is it ebook? So again, definitely go check out the previous workshop on how I break that down. But yes, but creativity is key. You have the entire internet at your fingertips. Go crazy on internet within reason, for me.
Yeah, I think organic social is underrated. The power of creative organic social. I think sometimes it doesn't get forgotten about, but it's something that I'm personally quite passionate about because it's what I engage with most. And I can tell when stuff is actually not done very personally and it's just kind of, you know, a part of something bigger. If you just do something really organic and authentic, I think you'll get a great engagement. So if you just, basically all the stuff we said about the authenticity, the community, the audience, and then just go and listen to Ellie's amazing kind of marketing plan breakdown. And she will guide you through, Caroline, to the marketing plan of your dreams.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Ellie's definitely the best person to kind of shout your that.
You can tell why I brought Claire onto this talk, can't you? Right, so I think on that lovely note, we're actually going to end it here because, like I said, we have run over by quite a bit. So thank you very much to the people that have remained. Like I said, we are still recording, so I'm going to stop recording now. Just to say thank you very much.